Hello and welcome everybody to this webinar where we're looking at the health and vitality of social work in Camden. We're thinking about the Camden model of social work, but we're also thinking about some of the challenges which face social work generally and some of the responses that we have here. My name's Martin Pratt. I'm the Executive Director supporting people, and it's my privilege to be Director of Children's Services for Camden. You'll be really relieved to know that you're not going to be listening to me for the next hour, but we've got a range of practitioners who are ready to talk about some of their experiences here, but also to think about, I think, what the real lived experience both of our children and families in Camden is, and the role of social work in strengthening those families. The model of practice, which is very much based on a systemic approach, and the way that we've developed that together with practitioners and with families that use the service and hearing clearly the voice of children. It's a really exciting time in Camden. We are very pleased with the way that services have developed so far, being a real balance between early help and high quality social work delivered in a way which is specifically designed to engage with families in a way that creates change for children. Hearing the voice of children, thinking about the experience of children, and ensuring that we're not going simply through a process, but we're thinking about how we apply high quality social work practice, how we exercise professional judgment, how we work in true partnership with families, and how we orientate the whole system towards change for those children. I'm very pleased to say that we've got a good range of people around the table who you're going to be able to hear from, and then the really interesting part where you're able to send in questions and we'll do the best to answer them. So a really warm welcome to this event. I think we are all very much looking forward to participating with you. I did want to, just as we're getting sort of orientating ourselves into this discussion, to just to use a short quote from our recent Ofsted inspection, not because our job is to pass inspections, but because I think it says something really interesting about the approach that we've taken, and also about how that's viewed from a different perspective. So I'm just going to, if you'll bear with me, read literally a couple of sentences, which says that the leadership team have formed a dynamic, professionally fertile environment for social workers at all levels of experience to engage with children and families. A learning culture is well supported by the use of a systemic model of practice. This enables social workers and other frontline workers to gradually increase their skills and knowledge through a continuous training and development framework. Social workers enjoy working in Camden and benefit from manageable caseloads and analytical, reflective group supervision. So there's plenty more of that, but we aren't going to give this over to Ofsted. We're going to give it over to the voice of social workers, and I'm going to hand on now to the head of service and to the director of children's safeguarding and social work, Anna Michelle, who will be able to tell you a little bit more about it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Michelle. I'm the Head of Service for Children in Need in Camden.
And I'm Anna, Director of Children's Social Work and Safeguarding in Camden.
We are delighted to have this opportunity to talk with you today and give you some information about Camden and why we are so proudly working in Camden and feel that we can offer you some significant opportunities for your professional development here in Camden. I think as social workers, many people are often concerned about caseloads and the level of work that they have to do. And in Camden, we are very pleased and proud that we are offering our social workers manageable caseloads and that they have a very good relationship with with their peers, with the team managers, and there's tremendous support available to social workers. We also understand when we know that we have good feedback from Ofsted, but actually what I hear from when I'm working on the floor is good feedback from social workers about the good quality of individual supervision and also the reflective group supervision that they experience at Camden, which they are grateful for. One of the other things I think that social workers are very pleased about is the level of training that is provided for them in Camden. There is a plethora of training in Camden, and that's alongside the training that we're also offering in systemic practice.
And I would like to just say that I'm incredibly proud to have my job here. I think we have brilliant staff, and the way they work to make a difference for children and their families is some of the best I've ever seen, and I've been a social worker a very long time.
So we have one of our partners from the Tavistock here to talk with you and explain systemic work and what they've been doing with us. And then we've got a number of people around the table that will also tell you about their journey through Camden and what it's really like being a social worker and being successful and having developed within Camden.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Dugmore. I'm a consultant social worker at the Tavistock and Portman Clinic. I'm also the portfolio manager for social care. And in that role, I've had the pleasure of working with colleagues in Camden for about the last 2.5 to 3 years, where we have been helping them undertake a big change to their social work practice. So we've been working with them to help develop what they have called the Camden model of social work, which is informed by systemic theory. And over that time, we have engaged the entire children and families social work workforce. So they've all had introductory training to systemic ideas, where we have introduced them to how they can use systemic concepts and ways of working to understand the children and families that they're working with, and also to develop their skills in engaging children and families, and also to think about how they work together collaboratively and collectively as social workers and as teams. So we've introduced them to a model of group supervision, which has enabled them to come together as small teams and really think about their work, talk about their work in a way that encourages them to be curious, to develop multiple perspectives, to share ideas with each other, and to really stop and pause and think about their work before jumping into action. And the staff have been really positive about this change to their practice, and they've really engaged with what has been a really big programme of reform for the Children's Social Work Service. And as well as that, we've been working with the senior leadership team to help them think systemically about putting together a programme of change, and some of the feedback from the social workers and senior practitioners was they wanted their leaders to be working more systemically, and the leadership team took that on board and commissioned us to continue a further piece of work with the leadership team, which is ongoing at the moment. The social work service has also enabled the people that have been trained to identify as champions, systemic champions, across the service at different levels in different teams and at all parts of the organisation, and they come together every month, and one of our systemic psychotherapists in the Tavistock supervises and helps coordinate those sessions. The champions have been really proactive in thinking about how they want to take their work forward. So with us, they have developed what we're calling systemic conversations, which are bite-sized workshops that our clinicians jointly deliver a programme with the Camden champions. And in doing that, we're really trying to help Camden build capacity within their organisation so that systemic practice is embedded at all levels across all teams. And we have had the first 2 of those workshops run over the last couple of months. They've been really well attended. We are continuing to roll out the introductory training to new staff that are joining Camden. So if you decide to come and work in Camden, you will have the opportunity to undertake the introductory training and to be part of systemic group supervision. I don't know how long I've got. Maybe I need to hand over. Presumably there's time for questions and answers, so I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I've got another 5 minutes. So I've been a social worker as well for many years, and worked with a lot of local authorities, and it's been really interesting and enjoyable working with Camden. It's always challenging to implement a programme of change that can evoke anxiety and uncertainty in practitioners, but I think Camden have made a real commitment to investing in social work practice that really seeks to make positive changes for the children and families, but also to really create a culture of curiosity and thinking amongst practitioners, so that they're really able to work within frameworks that support their development, their learning, and their quest to become the best practitioners that they can be. And they have commissioned us to continue this work for the next 12 to 18 months. So we're going to be carrying on to do that work and to continue to support the practitioners, the managers, the leadership team to think about how they can continue to develop this programme of work in the future, so that we gradually withdraw and they become self-sustaining, but we're there in the background should they need our support in the future.
Hi, my name is Ina Mahoney, and I am a team manager for one of the family intervention teams, so one of the long-term child and youth teams here in Camden.
I'm Esther Fitzroy. I'm a senior practitioner in one of the family intervention teams in Camden.
I suppose thinking about my journey in Camden, I started as an agency social worker 5 years ago in Camden, and I went on a journey where I worked for a few different places before I came to Camden. And I suppose what encouraged me to make that move to permanent, which I did do, was my experience of being a social worker on the ground. The resources that Camden have to offer, the work that goes into looking after social workers, but also while ensuring that we are able to then look after the families and children that we work with. From being a social worker, I was developed, encouraged, allowed access to a lot of training, and moved on to being a senior practitioner, which is a line manager to social workers. From there, I then moved on to a journey to become a team manager. So I've been on quite a journey with Camden, and I suppose that journey in particular highlights the culture Camden have of developing their own, growing their own, promoting their own, and ensuring that that moves into what we now have as a stable management workforce, which in turn has offered consistency to all of our teams and social workers that we work with. What I enjoy working about Camden is, I suppose, aesthetically, I like our location. We are in a very good location. We are based at King's Cross. It is a very pleasant office to work in. One of the best social work offices that I've ever worked in. We get access to a lot of employee benefits, including our wonderful on-site gym, which we get access to. But I suppose what I really enjoy about working for Camden is, like I said before, is the extensive range of resources that we have to offer children and families. The work that we actually want to put in place for families to achieve good outcomes, we have access to. So we're able to move families forward to independence from services. And that is because we're able to implement the interventions that we want for families. Alongside that, over the past 2 years, to really encourage social workers to become more of the lead professional with families, we have introduced, as Martin said earlier, the Camden model of social work, which has linked us in with the Tavistock in terms of offering that we'll learn in the systemic way of working with families, strength-based work with families, really encouraging social workers and developing their skills, our skills, to be able to do all of that work that we really, really want to do. And in turn, that has then led to having the opportunity to work alongside the Tavistock, which is not an opportunity that is given to many, many boroughs or many social workers. So it's been a fantastic opportunity that we have all had while being in Camden. I suppose in terms of projects, we are often looking for new ways to work with children, and one of our current projects is called the Right Balance Project, and that is aimed at 10 to 13-year-olds primarily, because research has shown us that that is the age where we can really try and grab hold of young people before they potentially enter into a world of ongoing services throughout their teenage life. With that, we have mentors, external resources that we can put into families to really strengthen them, promote family work, and hopefully prevent any negative outcomes for children. It's a relatively new project, but I know that Esther has already an example of really good outcome of how that project is working. So that's just one example of the new ways we think about working for children and families in Camden.
And moving on from what Ina said, I'm Esther, I'm a senior practitioner in Camden in the long-term team, and I also started as a social worker. When I started at Camden, I was a fairly new social worker, and it was my first job taking role. Camden are very resourced in terms of having a variety of training to help you develop in your confidence and in your practice with working with young people, working with adults, working with mental health, substance misuse, all various issues. And I was offered the opportunity to be trained in these various areas, and also including some training to help develop assessments such as ADAMS training and also ABU training, which includes interviewing young people who were been victims of crime and or harm, and it actually helps your assessment analysis tool as well. Such training is still available in Camden, and Camden do encourage workers to be trained in these tools to enhance their development. Camden also ensure supervision. In supervision, I was always asked about what areas I wanted to grow, what I wanted to achieve in my own practice, and I thought that that's evidence of actually caring about their workers, caring about their development, caring about the social work practice in general, and ensuring that all workers have experience and variety of training to actually share with others as well. After some time at Camden, I was also encouraged to be promoted to become a senior practitioner, which is my role right now, where I supervise social workers within a pod. And that's really helped as well, because I was also trained in becoming a new supervisor. This is also a new role to me, and I was offered training to improve my supervision skills and improve also supporting workers. And this training is still available in Camden. Alongside that as well, what I think really works at Camden is that Camden is very well resourced. Being in a London Borough, we have access to a variety of services for people of different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, families who may be at risk of deprivation. That's all within Camden itself, and we have access to that. And this is what helps us to work with families intensely to prevent children coming into the care system. Camden, we do actually have a lower number of children going to the care system because our approach is about working with families and actually promoting them to make informed decisions and ensuring that children have better outcomes, and that's the focus of our work. Going on from what Ina had mentioned about our new programme called the Right Balance, this is a programme which is focused more on children aged 10 to 13 who are deemed to be at that cut-off age where if things aren't improved for them, they could actually go on to have poor outcomes, and that is the age where we feel we need to work actually quite closely with them. And during this programme, we've actually focused more on having positive family group conferences, which is a practice that's embodied in Camden to ensure our family and friend networks being a part of the family issues, ensuring that they have a team around them to support them to address any issues, and also ensuring that the families have a sense of ownership of their plan and ownership of their lives, their children's lives, to ensure that they work in partnership with us to improve outcomes for their family. And an example I've had a family actually report positive feedback that they feel that things have really come on well for their young son, who was at that cut-off age where there was lots of concerns with behaviour or issues in school, and things have improved. And that's just one example of how, you know, Camden wants to work, you know, differently with families and ensuring that families are actually aware of what's changed and how we're working to improve outcomes for them. What I love about Camden as well is that it's a popular borough. It's well resourced. We have a gym in our local area in King's Cross. We're just close to the Roundhouse in Camden, which also offer activities to young children in the summer holidays. We encourage young people to be involved in their community as well, and also there's a variety of youth clubs and programs available to support young people.
Yes, hello. Hi, my name's Sam Williams. I'm a social worker, and I've been a social worker for about 2.5 years. And all of them 2.5 years has been at Camden. For me, I think I want to echo a lot of what's been said already. And it's interesting to hear from all the levels of management. I would like to say that I feel that we've had really good support from management. It's been really approachable in terms of being able to, we work on the same floor, so I think it's been really good for me as a social worker who's developed at Camden to be able to have informal consultation with management, and that's something that I think is really, really important for me. I think for me, what I've really gained from working at Camden is I'm really excited and passionate to be a part of this Camden model of social work. I'm also a systemic champion. A lot of you probably heard about the Hackney model, and when I was in university, that's something that I banded about a bit as a really interesting development in social work. Well, I feel that actually I'm a part of something like that, and I'm at the beginning of something. And for me, it's really, really important that this works. And I think we all really want it to work. Throughout the whole service, we've got independent reviewing officers involved, we've got managers, we've got seniors, we've got social workers, and there's a real sense that this working together with the Tavistock has helped us to develop and practice. For me, I definitely feel that's really helped me. I know there's lots of questions that probably you're going to ask us, and I think from a social worker perspective, I'd like to say that I feel that my caseload is manageable. It's never been an issue for me in terms of being able to feel overwhelmed. Okay, there's court work and things like that. You know, we work in child protection. There is going to be difficult times, but it's that support that you get from your team, your colleagues, and your managers that really help. I think as well, having a legal team on the same floor has really been beneficial. In terms of legal meeting, you know, it's been quick. We've been able to get things going, and when we go to panel, it feels that there's a sense of urgency and purpose, which has really helped the children in Camden. We work in a diverse borough, and I think it was touched on a little bit by Esther about the communities in Camden. Originally, I've lived in the Midlands and I've lived in Wales, and coming to London and working in a diverse community has really helped me in terms of how I work with families as a whole. And it's how I kind of interact with people. And I think that systemic model really pushes that as well. I won't go into the details of the systemic model, but I think maybe perhaps this is something that is going to become public and it's going to be rolled out. So that's something that maybe I would encourage you to look into. However, I would like to say that interagency working is excellent. You know, we managed to work with CAMS and really have a sense that we can work together. Where I know there's been a lot of challenges for social workers in terms of how we work with other agencies, how we bring other agencies involved with us. And I think that's important that Camden got that right and continue to get that right. Martin expressed in the Ofsted, and I think in the quote he did from Ofsted, really demonstrates how I think things are working well in Camden at all levels, especially as a social worker. Yeah, I mean, we talked about the great location. I mean, you know, after work, there's a great social life around here as well. So when you've finished work, a hard day, you know, there's lots of places to go, and And it's really, really, for someone who's moved to London as well, we're right in the middle, we're at the heart of it. It's a busy, bustling, exciting city. And, you know, you could be a part of that, you could be working there. So I think that's something that attracted me when I first came to work in Camden. Yeah, and the facility's really good, gym. I've been a member of gym, I'm currently not, I need to get back on it. But it's, you know, it's there, and it's got everything, it's well resourced. So, yeah, and I think really, just to say that, you know, going forward, I'm really, really proud of Camden. I'm really proud of working for Camden, and I'm really proud of my team. And you know, and I'm just hope that perhaps we'll see you there sometime.
Hi, my name's Keisha. I'm currently doing my ASYE at Camden. One of the things that I definitely noticed at starting my ASYE here is that Camden definitely are always thinking of innovative ways that they can facilitate effective and efficient working to help support children and families within Camden. There's heavy planning and research, and we're signed up to research and practice, which helps keep employees up to date with relevant things that will help support our families and children, as well as training events that are always notified to those doing the ASYE and other staff members. Emails are heavily sent round to keep to notify staff that such events are coming up, so that you can be aware of things that might be beneficial to you. There's also ASYE forums that allow those of us that are doing the ASYE to meet up with the other ASYEs, whether that be in the family intervention team, in the LAC team, in the multiple teams that they have at Camden, to kind of meet with one another to see how they're doing with their ASYE, and I guess to share advice on how to best progress within your ASYE. I would definitely say I felt heavily supported since I've started my ASYE on all levels. One thing about Camden that I've found quite beneficial is the pod system that they have here. So within a team, there are multiple pods who are managed by a senior social worker, who then oversees 4 or 5 social workers. And I think that it just supports, especially for me as an ASYE, means that I have my pod to immediately go to, my senior, and if I can't get support from any one of those, I can then go to the other pod and work my way up that way. So in that sense, there's always somebody available. And even within teams, people aren't afraid to help you, even if you're not necessarily from that team. But at the end of the day, it's very much at the heart within Camden that we are here to help support and safeguard the children and families. So where people can, they always will help. And I've definitely seen that. And I've never felt that there's been an issue in asking staff who are available a question about how best I could resolve an issue that I might have, or if someone could explain something to me. People are very approachable within Camden, and I think that's definitely helped me transition into the team, because I think that's one of the daunting things that you often feel, especially for myself, not having actually worked within a child protection team prior to starting my ASYE, was about operating systems and how things work. But I feel because of the support that I've been provided, I've been able to integrate quite easily, because people are always happy to share resources that they have, share new information, and very, I guess, a community within the workforce. So that's definitely helped. As people have said already, I definitely feel that the building itself, whilst aesthetically it's visually very pretty and very nice, I think it lends itself though to integrated working. Having all of our services in one building at 500 Square is definitely beneficial as a social worker, because it means there's increased accessibility. So in terms of doing joint working with housing officers, campus safety nets, the domestic violence work, family support workers, CAMS, it really does lend itself to making sure information is shared really quickly, or you can get updates where you can join and plan together how you're going to move forward when there's issues. I definitely feel that for me has been one of the biggest things that I've found very valuable, is that having that accessibility to meet up and do that joint working does make the difference, because you there and then can say, oh, have you got like spare time to just meet up so we can touch base to say there's an issue that's come up, how can we move forward? So I definitely think that Camden definitely are looking at ways that they can definitely promote effective working, and I think it's evident in the practice that it's working, and definitely helps us as social workers to ensure that we're developing the best practice that we can.
I think I just want to quickly add, the group supervision has been an eye-opener. It's really, really helped. I think, you know, when you think of supervision one-to-one, group supervision and incorporating a systemic model has really, really been able to look at a case in a different way. And also, because we're in the pod, you know, we talked about social workers helping each other out, we know each other's cases, we try and act on that if someone's on annual leave or they're not well or something. So it really, really helped to get a sense and feel of what the families that we're working with, so they don't feel that they have to keep repeating themselves all the time, which I think for a lot of families has been a big issue in the past. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name is Patricia Williams. I started Camden as an unqualified social worker many years ago, and at the time we were encouraging grow your owns. And I had a very small caseload and working quite closely with a qualified social worker. From there on in, obviously I'm not going to bore you with all the ins and outs. I went to university, funded and supported by Camden, and became a qualified social worker, and again returned to Camden. Whilst in Camden, obviously, I think what has attracted me about having gone through that process and then returning and remaining is the fact that, you know, you're always supported in Camden. You're supported in terms of your training. You're made to feel part of the workforce. You're encouraged to participate in all, I guess, that would not only develop you, but obviously have an impact on the outcomes of the children that we work with. I was a team manager for a number of years, and throughout that period, I have seen many changes. Obviously, in terms of some of the inspections that we've had, the outcomes of those, you know, some of the changes, how, you know, the way we work with families, you know, family resilience, you know, Camden Way, you know, there's so many different projects that I've been part of and I've been made aware of and learned through in the time that I've been in Camden. I think some of the things that have really attracted me with Camden is the fact that we have such a stable management, senior management team. You know, we don't have a lot of transitions in the management team, which has a positive impact for not only the social workers, but, you know, as people have already spoken about, some of the new social workers that come on board, having that continuity and consistency in the borough. I think we are a very, very proud borough, and I'm very proud to be an employee in Camden. I talk very highly of Camden when I meet people, because I think a lot of what we, should I say, brag about is actually true. You know, we work hard, we care about people in Camden, we care about the families we work with, we care about, you know, outcomes for children. Our partnership work is also at a very high level. On the whole, I have to say, I think Camden's one of the best boroughs that we can actually work for in London. In relation to our location and where we are placed, I think, yes, we are placed in the heart of King's Cross, very expensive, but we do have facilities within the building. Again, it's a very, very nice building. We are all working on the 9th floor of the building where we are located, quite closely together. I think what is also impressive is the fact that senior management do not create a real division between the workforce. So there's no clear demarcation that, you know, directors and executive directors will sit here, social workers sit there, team managers will sit there. We all work together. There's integration throughout the day. The executive Chief Executive Director will speak with you, our director speaks with you, you know, team managers approach you. You know, there is no real division amongst us. We are a team. In actual fact, I don't think it's been mentioned, sometimes it feels as if we're one big family trying to, you know, with the same aims and objectives. I would encourage your application to Camden. I think we can all talk an awful lot about how wonderful we are, but unless you come and join us, you won't actually experience how great we are. You have heard already about our Ofsted inspection, and we've all the people that have spoken, we've all been part of that, and it was exhilarating to be part of it and to see what actually was happening on the day when we had inspectors in there. The partnership work was impressive. You know, being able to follow, you know, the lines that was required in order to give evidence of what we did. It was absolutely impressive. I can go on, but my only word is that you should come and join us in Camden. I think we are absolutely fantastic.
So that was hearing from a range of colleagues, and thank you to all of you, both for joining us and for sending in questions. The best way, I think, for me to do this, and I'm looking around the table, is that I'm going to read out some of the questions that have been sent in and then call on people to come and give a response. So this could be interesting. We'll see how that works. I think the other thing we ought to just sort of say, we've heard about a number of projects, the Right Balance project. We've heard about the approach that we're taking, and that has attracted a lot of national attention. So Camden is a partner in practice, a Department for Education partner in practice, helping support the development of practice in other areas. We are also an innovation site for DFE. We have been thinking very carefully with other government departments about how we work, for example, with children who are in the criminal justice system, or those who have been have the potential to be radicalized, and we've been thinking about all sorts of pretty challenging areas. But there's one key theme that runs all the way through, which is that of excellent social work practice. And I just want to echo something Anne said earlier on, which is I've been doing this job a long time too. I'm a very proud social worker, and been doing this over 30 years. And I've worked in a lot of places, and I've never seen social work practice of the quality that I see every day as I sit out on that floor with my colleagues. So we're going to get to the questions now, because you've been really patient. I can see that none of you have dropped off the line, which is one or two may have dropped off, but that's only when I'm talking. So I'm going to just go through this list, if you'll bear with me. So the first one says, what resources are available to social workers at Camden compared to other boroughs? And I think I'm going to invite Michelle to come and give some a bit of support on that. Whilst Michelle works her way around to the camera, it's worth thinking about the physical resources, but also those professional resources that are available. Michelle.
Hi, yeah, I think in Camden we're very fortunate that if you look and take an example of our MASH team, we have a lot of our partner agencies co-located and are able to use them as a significant resource. So we have our police child abuse investigation team there, we have the public protection desk there, we have probation in the MASH, we have CAM support in the MASH, and we have health visiting. So they were able to draw on their expertise, because we're on the same floor throughout all of the cases. So if there's a case that comes through and you need to have some experienced help and support from a health visitor, you can actually use that health visitor MASH before you actually perhaps make contact with the family. And if you're doing a Section 47 or you're going through a child protection investigation, then they're able to help you do the check. Alongside that, there's a lot of integrated working. So CAMS, as people were talking earlier, are in our building. We work with what we call the whole family service, and they come alongside us and help us to do the parenting interventions and assessments. So they're available to us. We can just there's a number of CAMS professionals
that we're able just to have a consultation with. It's not a rigorous or difficult referral process. We have those conversations, we consider a programme of work, and then with that, as a good resource, the social worker can go with the additionality of that person going out and helping to the assessment or a period of intervention. We're well resourced in terms of the voluntary agencies in Camden, a plethora of them. I wouldn't be able to name all of them. They are available there, and we have a very active intervention and support of our voluntary sector. We work very closely with our yachts colleagues who are also co-located with us, and we're able to respond effectively with one plan for the young person across yachts and social care, and with the CAM support and the psychological support. So a number of resources that is available and should be thought about, and are thought about on each and every individual case. So the social worker should never feel alone and unsupported, but we should also think very carefully. I think what we are also minded of is that it's not about just providing a lot of services to families. You know, it's thinking about what are the needs, what has the assessment shown and demonstrated, what is the intervention plan that's been agreed by the network, and who in that network then are key people that will deliver that type of intervention. I hope I've answered your question.
Thanks, Michelle. The next question I think might be for Paul, but certainly will have come out during Paul's input. So a systemic psychotherapist was mentioned. Would you say that the use of psychoanalytical method of thinking alongside, would you say that you use a psychoanalytical method of thinking alongside a systemic model? So Paul, I don't know if you want to help with that. So there's probably a couple of things I would say in relation to that question. Firstly, as Michelle said, and following on from what she was saying about resources, the Tavistock delivers all of Camden's CAMS provision. So we have a multidisciplinary team that is completely embedded within Camden social work services, within BLAC, within Child in Need, and that consists of systemic psychotherapists, but also psychoanalytic psychotherapists, psychiatry, nursing, clinical and educational psychology. So it's very multidisciplinary. So yes, psychoanalytic thinking will certainly be part of the multidisciplinary discussions that take place when, as Michelle said, Camden social workers may want to consult with CAM's colleagues in situ. And certainly Camden Children and Families also have access to psychoanalytic psychotherapy as part of what's available in terms of interventions. The systemic model of practice obviously is informed by systemic theory, but the way that it's taught is that it also is about social workers not privileging just one way of understanding the world, a child, the family, but to enable a wide theoretical influence to their decision making, their thinking about risk, thinking about what's best for families. So I would say yes, it's part of it, but it is the case that a wide range of theoretical underpinnings are available as well as the systemic way of working. Camden also uses a signs of safety approach. So the training that is given to social workers around the systemic model of supervision is one in which other theoretical and professional disciplines are also privileged. Thank you, Paul. That's really helpful. And I ought to say, just whilst we're going through the questions, if you have been interested in the things we've been talking about, there's an opportunity on Thursday evening to come to an open evening at 5 Pancras Square. Details will be available afterwards, where you can come along and talk to people and have a look. But let's go back to the questions. So what support is offered to newly qualified social workers embarking on their AYSE within Camden? Well, I think Keisha talked about this a little earlier, but I'm going to just invite her back. I suppose what I want to say as Director of Children's Services is we are really interested in people who are at the beginning of their careers. We think that there's part of our overall strategy is to make sure that we are selecting people who have real potential and then developing them to be the best social workers they can be, and that's how we're creating fantastic teams and really establishing social work as a proud profession, and one which is clear about how its values are and how it works. And we also have a kind of annual celebration at the end of the AYSE, which you might not know, Keisha, yet actually, which usually involves the mayor and various wrinkly old social workers like me talking about how good it was in the old days. So, but we are a place that, it all sounds quite earnest, doesn't it? We're a place that celebrates social work at each of the stages of people's career and the contribution that social work as a discipline makes to the lives of children. Keisha, did you want to add anything on the support you've had as an AYSE? Or?
There's lots of support across all levels. So immediate support has definitely come from my senior practitioner. She's really been very supportive in managing my workload, I guess, and helping me, providing me with support. And then there's also been support from my team manager. I would definitely say in terms of caseloads, I've always been consulted prior to being allocated a new case and kind of had a talk through what to expect from this case and what I can do moving forward since being allocated the case. And they've always discussed with me what why they kind of allocated me the case and what maybe strengths I might have for certain aspects of it, and why they think it's suitable. And then also that gives me the opportunity to kind of ask any questions myself about the case. So I'm never unexpectedly just logging onto my laptop and seeing that I've just been allocated like 5 cases. And my caseload is very manageable. There's also support between other ASYEs within the forums that happen every so often, where you obviously get to speak to the other ASYEs and, like I said, kind of share your experiences and get support from them. But I'd say most importantly, support's definitely been from my team. As I said, people are very aware when there's a new ASYE joining the team, and are very forthcoming in making sure they introduce themselves and they say that what other support is it that we can provide in terms of sharing resources or services, agencies that they've found they've worked well with that they might benefit. And as my colleague Sam said, we know each other's cases quite well. So if I hear somebody speaking now myself, and I've had similar experiences or issues with, I guess, that particular thing, I might be able to then say to them, oh, this service worked quite well when I had that issue. So people are very forthcoming in doing things like that. So there's support across all levels.
Thank you, Keisha. There are a number of new questions coming in, and we'll continue with this for a while. But if we don't get to everybody's question, then we'll certainly you can have the opportunity on Thursday to come and ask them in person. There's a question which is about our views on restorative practice with families, and I think Anne, would you like to have a go at this one, or shall I? I'll carry on. I think there's one thing which is which we haven't mentioned yet, which is absolutely fundamental to the way that we work in Camden, and that's the role of family group conferencing. That we use family group conferences not as a project to which some families are referred, but absolutely core to the workflow. It's seen much more as an entitlement than an optional extra, and it informs whether that's in early help or whether that's in child protection. The engagement with and thinking about models of working with the family, informed by restorative approaches, is absolutely central. So I'm going to move on from that one, unless anybody else wants any comments. I don't know, Ina, did you want to say something? No, just checking. Okay. Please repeat the name of the project. So this was the project, I think, that Esther was talking about, and this is our innovation project, and it's called Right Balance, and this is really looking at those young people who are beginning to show some of the signatures of risk at that crucial time, age 10, age 11, the year 6, year 7 transition, and up to 13, where we can see that if there isn't work done, the potential is that they will go on to the either in the care system or the criminal justice system will require a more profound and intrusive intervention. And the secret, or at least the model, is to work really closely in an enabling way with families at that earlier stage, and really think about how we bring together the support that's required to ensure that people make a secure transition into secondary education, that they are resolving some of those issues that are beginning to establish in the families, and it's a really interesting piece of work. So again, if you come on Thursday, you can talk to Esther. I'm flogging this a bit now, aren't I? Obviously, it also features on the DFE website. What are the team sizes like for social workers in Camden? How are they supported throughout their practice in terms of supervision and management? I mean, I hope in some ways we've covered that, but I'm just going to look around and see if perhaps Ina could come and have a little go at this one, because we have restructured in a way which is informed by the experiences of children, rather than having an assessment team and then a child in need team and then a looked after team. We think about dealing very quickly with the allocation of work from the MASH, and people either move into the brief intervention team or into the family intervention team, or indeed early help, so that we don't build in changes of social worker unnecessarily for families and particularly for children. It's because our whole model is based on the importance of relationships. Team sizes and all of that.
Okay, so a family intervention team. In family intervention service, we have 3 family intervention teams. Each team is made up of 16 social workers, 4 senior practitioners, and then 1 team manager. Each senior practitioner will line manage 4 social workers directly, and that's what we call we use the term pod to describe those. And through your pod, that's where you will receive individual case supervision, but you'll also receive group reflective supervision, which we mentioned slightly earlier. We are actually linking into the Tavistock with. So at the minute, we actually have a therapist from the Tavistock who will join our group reflective supervisions and ensure that we are, I suppose, learning the theories needed, but also reflecting appropriately and with the new themes and new ways of thinking and working with families to ensure that we make the most of that time. And then above the senior practitioners will be 1 team manager. So that's how it works.
Here's an example.
Yeah.
Thank you. So just a couple more. Somebody did just say, were we planning on running future webinars, and might we be doing a webinar for adult services? And that's certainly a possibility, and thank you for that suggestion. We certainly intend to continue with the use of webinars, a way of engaging people in the work, and also thinking together about some of those challenges. So how do you work with the senior management team? What type of leadership team does Camden have? Well, Anne's going to have to come and talk to us. But as has already been said, the senior leadership is very much embedded with the service. We don't have separate officers. We don't have, which in some cases is great, and others I think sometimes wish would just go away. But anyway,
leadership in Camden is very much about focusing on the practice. And as leaders, we are here, we're concerned about the quality of services and the outcomes for our children and our families that live in our area. And every leader in Camden is committed to the experience of children and the residents in all parts of what we do. We're also, as Paul's mentioned, I was trained myself in the systemic approach, so I was trained as a practitioner to work in the same, and I trained alongside the social work in the first cohort, and many of the heads of service were with me in that group, because we needed to really know what frontline practice is like, and remember what we did, but also not in that rather sort of sentimental way of the media who thought you were rather brilliant, actually really knowing that the problems and the challenges of today and the demands on the modern social work service need to be fully understood by the leaders. And we have valued that, as Paul mentioned, we've continued that, because we still have the responsibility of making sure things are done, that processes are carried out. But at the same time, we need to be open to learning from our workforce, because our social workers normally find very sensible solutions to many of the problems that we as managers seem to find incredibly difficult. So there is something where that sort of sense of common sense, the approach of working with children and their families helps us work through. The other part of leadership in Camden is being part of the wider network, be a leader with our Children's Trust Partnership, where we meet regularly with the schools, the head teachers come into the room, police officers come to that meeting, GPs come to that meeting, and we get a lot of feedback about how our services work from those agencies. We also work across the council. People have mentioned being co-located with council teams. We've had some particular sessions with our benefits service, thinking about the new challenges for the new benefits coming into our families, and that's been really useful. So as leaders across, we can make demands on other leaders across the council to help us solve problems.
Thanks, Anne. And I think that's a really good note for us to draw the debate to a close on, in that Camden is and prides itself on being a learning organisation. And no matter how senior you are in the organisation, you learn something every day. And certainly I learn from seeing the work of practitioners, some of whom you've heard from today. So I'm just going to check that I have reminded you, haven't I, about Thursday evening. Thank you again for your participation. We are really interested in some feedback on staff. Right, okay, I'm getting a message here. Sorry, Michelle, what was... Oh dear.
You will have seen the advert and pleased that you joined us tonight. There are some great opportunities, of course, across the services in Camden, from MASH right through to our family intervention team. We have spaces and availability and opportunities for both AYSA and some experienced workers. You've heard how good we are. We're very proud, and we would absolutely love to see you on Thursday or see an application from you. Many thanks.
Okay, thank you.